big story of the day, if you're a New Orleans Saints fan, is that, yes, the times are changing and the pain of the past is being healed, man. This was a Twitter interaction to bring a tear to a Saints fan's eye. And I know that we should maybe be careful reading too much into social media posts, but this almost feels so purposeful and like concerted and like they meant and knew exactly what they do when they did this, that I think it's fine to read a lot into this. So let's talk about Mike Thomas. The New Orleans Saints second best offensive weapon, right? We'll get we'll say AK is still number one. We talked about the Saints' needs yesterday, and definitely wide receiver was super high on that list. However, we said because how good Thomas is potentially, and maybe Callaway is a 3, that if you get that one other receiver, you should be good to go because Mike Thomas is elite at the height of his powers. But is Mike Thomas bought in? That was the question. That's been the question for years now. And we all know what happened a couple of years ago. Him and CD Deuce get in that fight. Reportedly, CD Deuce wins the fight. Sean Payton basically says, I think CD was in the right. There's a little friction there, a little bit of fallout, the angle, everything else just kind of spins out from there, right? Well, that's why it was so important, maybe the most important Twitter interaction between CD Deuce and Mike Thomas took place yesterday. CJ Gardner-Johnson tweeting at Can't Guard Mike. Where you been, gang? Ain't seen or heard from you. Which, at the start, you're like, okay, what? Is that a red flag? Where's he been? He hadn't been around the building. What's going on? Mike Thomas responds, mapping it out. We got to be up next, twin. I'm going to hit you, though, and figure it out. CD says, yes, sir, twin. Ready for you to F stuff up on gang, 100 emoji. And then CD Deuce tweets, yeah, and twin going to lead the league when he back. Watch, take notes. And then they both go on to tweet about wanting to win a Super Bowl together. So here is the olive branch that we've been looking for, right? The conflict that was at the core of the Mike Thomas drama, Jake, a couple years later appears to have been healed.
No, and it's really good because CD Deuce is somebody that every player respects in that locker room. I mean, when he's not on the field, it's just a different football team. I mean, he completely changes, I think, the attitude of the entire team, not just the defense. And, of course, like you mentioned, like obviously they've had issues in the past, and you're wondering, where is Mike Thomas at? Because Mike Thomas is crucial to the success of the Saints.
Yeah.
Like, we have seen what it takes to go win a Super Bowl. How many weapons you have to have. The Bengals have 3 weapons. The Rams, when they lost one of their weapons, it almost cost them a Super Bowl. So having that guy and then having secondary pieces is so important, but you got to have that guy before you can get the secondary pieces. So he is crucial to whichever quarterback ends up being behind center for the Saints. And so for your best player, for your energy guy, for like the backbone type guy, kind of your bully a little bit, like for him to be in Mike Thomas's corner, that's very important.
Well, it's what an interesting way that you just described CJ Gardner-Johnson, because you're absolutely right. But not a lot of people would have guessed a couple of years ago that maybe 2 years later CJ would immediately be like everybody's favorite Saint. Like his rise to stardom, both on the field where he is actually a dominant player and like in the minds and hearts of fans, it is an unexpected rise, but it's also an earned rise, right? Nobody gave him any of that, right? He wasn't given a roster spot, wasn't given a starter spot. He has had to find his way, and he has really just bullied his way in there in more ways than one. In fact, but never forget this. This is not a loose cannon. Everything that CJ Gardner-Johnson does is calculated, as evidenced by the fact they put taunting in. And correct me if I'm wrong, maybe once, but I don't think once. Did CJ Gardner-Johnson get a taunting penalty this last year?
Not that I remember, no.
Exactly. And there is not a more calculated or effective trash talker in the entire league. So it's not just wild emotion and being crazy. No, it's a controlled and focused emotion and play, and it's led to elite play. Like Jake said, it's a different defense when he's on the field. He is now a huge team leader in that locker room, which is obvious. And now as a leader, he is kind of bringing Mike Thomas back into the fold. And Nick, I was thinking about Nick Underhill article. Jake, you raise a good point. You talk about helping out whoever the new quarterback is. That's one of the most exciting parts about Mike Thomas is when he was at his peak, and Nick pointed this out, New Orleans off football, Mike Thomas transcended Drew Brees. What I mean by that is, in that record-setting season, it didn't matter who was throwing him the ball. His pace remained the same.
Yeah.
When Teddy Bridgewater came in for Drew a few years ago, Mike Thomas didn't fall off at all. When Taysom Hill came in for Drew, Mike Thomas didn't fall off at all. So whoever the new quarterback is, protected behind this offensive line, which should be good, even though you got to figure out what you can do with Teron Armstead. And then if you throw in a guy like Mike Thomas, like that's going to make the landing of whoever the new QB is, it's just going to make it a way more enjoyable and easier experience.
It also could potentially get someone to want to come to sign with the Saints because you have a number one weapon. If you didn't have him, no disrespect to any of the receivers left on the roster, but there was no one that would move the needle for a veteran quarterback looking to win a Super Bowl. But if you have Mike Thomas, right, and you understand that he comes with some question marks, but if you have him, that enters you into quarterback sweepstakes that I don't think anybody else in your roster could get some of those names to potentially want a trade to New Orleans. And so he is a key piece, like him or not, right? Like what he's done, off the field, the injury stuff or not, like he is a key piece to getting a franchise quarterback in New Orleans. And I still think even with Mike Thomas, you still need other things for this offense. And certainly if Alvin Kamara is not with this team because of the legal issues, that's even going to further the point that you need somebody else on this team.
Yeah, and I have to. Well, I can't say I have to imagine because I could see it going multiple ways. But just the timing of the Kamara stuff. If I had to try to guess like a timeline on this, I would think that ideally the NFL would want to have a decision resolved by the start of the year. So if a suspension was going to take place, you could do it right at the beginning. But then again, after how the Marshawn Lattimore thing kind of drug out and played out last year, and then Deontay Harris, whose suspension didn't come way later in the season, I guess only time will tell in that regard. If he is out in the beginning of the season, Alvin Kamara, that is, well, then Mike Thomas's importance, like Jake said, going to be even greater as he'll like to carry you through those opening games. And make no mistake, the NFC South is wide open right now. Ironically, the best quarterback situation is the Atlanta Falcons. With Matt Ryan right now. Now, I don't know how much I like the Falcons outside of that. I feel like they probably, did they overachieve last year?
Falcons?
A little bit? Yeah, I would say so. Yeah, I would say so. So, so a year that they can potentially build upon. But when you look, what's Tampa, post Brady, you're not really sure. Carolina feels like an absolute mess here in year number 3 under Matt Rule. And so, yeah.
You got McAdoo, though.
What?
They got McAdoo.
Oh, yeah. They brought in the fixer.
That's right.
Ben McAdoo.
Really mind. Nobody left for the Saints to hire for OC, huh?
Never mind. The Panthers are the best in the league. The Saints, I'll be very interested to see where Dennis Allen ends up going for OC. I don't buy into the idea of there's nobody to hire, though. There's no talent pool. People get hires wrong all the time, right? They hired Jason Garrett. That's a name. It went horribly. Yeah. They hired Ben McAdoo. Like, don't tell me there's nobody to hire. It's just really hard to hire. And so people fall back on names that they know. Like, there are brains out there that can do that job. So in an NFC South that is wide open, getting back a first-team all-pro character fully bought in, it's hard to overstate or over-exaggerate the importance of that. And again, we got to just give a huge shout-out to C.D. Deuce, C.J. Gardner-Johnson, the best Florida Gator, right? Probably in my sporting life. I'm trying to think about anybody else off the top of my head that I've come to cheer for that's been a Florida Gator, which admittedly is
on the field.
Well, Florida I guess you would say Chris Doering,
yeah,
as probably your favorite Florida Gator just in life. But yeah, like on the field, I don't know if I've ever fallen for someone like C.D. Deuce. I like Evan McPherson, right? What he did with the Bengals and Joey B and company. Vernon Hargreaves, maybe not so much. But, yes, C.D. Deuce, forever good.
Oh, Vernon in his shower sandals.
That's what I'm saying. Vernon got an unsportsmanlike penalty in the Super Bowl.
He wouldn't even
C.D. Deuce is the biggest trash talker in the NFL and didn't get a single taunting penalty last year.
Yeah.
Smart.
Wasn't even dressed for the game.
No, Vernon, that was bad.
What is we doing?
I don't know. There's no living that down. And he was getting played everywhere, too. And
There was so many things that happened in that Super Bowl that the Bengals offensive line and how bad it was is like the fifth story.
Which the more data we learn about how bad they were unbelievably bad.
Yeah, Joe was getting the ball out the second fastest time in his career.
Oh, what? I didn't know. I didn't even see that point.
2.41 seconds, which was the second fastest, I think, in his career.
Well, and then
short career, but still.
I know that according to PFF's team pass blocking grades, they had the third lowest of any game this entire year. And then I want to say in maybe it was another metric. It was some ESPN metric, maybe like pass rush win rate. They had the lowest win of the entire season. So you are talking about not just a middling performance, not a bad performance. You are actually talking about an offensive line performance that was almost a statistical outlier in how bad it was. Which, again, sometimes the stuff that you think is going to happen happens.
Yeah.
And that is what we all said going into the game was going to be the biggest thing to overcome. And sure enough, there you go. It ends up being the difference. We're going to talk about the MVP voting a little bit in hour number 3 because I kind of feel like Aaron Donald still should have been MVP. And I'm not going to raise a stink about it. More, though, I think there is a conversation to be had about, do you need to change the voting? Apparently, the MVP voting goes into place right around the 2-minute mark.
Yeah, and obviously, like the biggest moments can come in that 2-minute mark. Yeah. So I want to talk about that voting. Also want to talk Hall of Fame voting as well in the show. So we'll talk about that.
Yeah, and look, if you're looking on the rundown on the right, and if you're in the future, it's pretty cool because you can just really almost jump to anywhere you would want to in the show. But the rundown is going to give you an idea of topic by topic what we're going to be getting into today. So stick around with us here on Off the Bench on 104.5 ESPN.